Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this particular video, I will be discussing about different features of GST. What are different features of GST? The important features of GST, the first and very important feature of GST is the taxable event under GST shall be supply of goods or services or both. The taxable event under GST, it means the word supply is very important here, because if there is no supply, no GST will be applicable. GST is applicable on the supply of goods or services or both. It means the person will be liable to pay GST only when there is supply of goods or services, because the supply word is the taxable event under GST. Actually, before GST, earlier the manufacturers were taxable under central excise, transfer of goods were taxable under like VAT, CST, and providing services were taxable under like service tax. But now on all these we have to pay only one tax, that is GST. Now what is the meaning of supply here? Supply here means all forms of supply like sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, all forms of supply made by a person for the consideration in his business. That we need to remember. Made by a person for the consideration in his business will include in the word supply. It means if any of the above transaction like sale, transfer, exchange, license, any of the above transaction made by a person for consideration either in his the current business or in the furtherance of business, means in course of business or for the furtherance of business, that will include in supply. And along with that, import of services. We are talking about import of services only, not import of goods, because import of goods are levied under the custom law, custom act. So import of services for a consideration whether or not in course of business. It means if the person is importing any services from outside India for the consideration, it should be for consideration whether it is related with the business or not, that will also include in supply. So supply, the word supply here includes all forms of supply like sale, transfer, barter, exchange, and along with that import of services will also be part of supply. But in detail the word supply we will discuss in the separate video also. The next important feature of GST is based on destination based taxation system. This destination word is very important because it is based on the destination based taxation system. It means tax is levied at the place where goods and services are consumed, not produced. It would be levied at the place where consumption taken place, not production taken place. Actually earlier tax were levied on the origin based taxation system, but now after GST it is destination based taxation system. It means goods and services should be levied at the place where their consumption takes place rather than the point or place where origin takes place. Like for example, ABC Limited of Mumbai produces and sells goods to XYZ Limited. It means ABC Limited is where? ABC Limited is there in Mumbai and XYZ Limited is there in Delhi. So ABC Limited transfer or sales goods to XYZ Limited. Then in this case tax will be accrue in state of Delhi, not in the state of Mumbai. Why? Because consumption is taken place in Delhi, not in Mumbai. The place of destination is Delhi, not in Mumbai. So the tax will be levied and accrue in Delhi, not in Mumbai. The next important feature of GST is self-supply of goods and services subject to tax. Self-supply of goods and services. It means in case of transfer of goods from one branch of a person to the of the one state to the other branch in the other state, it will also be subject to GST. It means in case of inter-branch transfer of goods and services from one state to the other state, GST will be applicable. Like for example, if Mr. X transfer goods from his head office in Mumbai to the branch in UP, head office is where? Head office is there in Mumbai and branch is there in UP. So Mr. X transfer goods from Mumbai from head office to the branch in UP. So this process will be subject to GST. In this process GST will be applicable. However, this is the process of inter-branch transfer of goods and services. The next important feature of GST is different components of GST. These these are different components of GST. CGST means Central Goods and Services Tax, SGST is State Goods and Services Tax, UTGST Union Territory Goods and Services Tax, and IGST is Integrated Goods and Services Tax. As far as CGST means Central Goods and Services Tax is concerned, CGST is to be administered by central government. It is to be administered by central government. It means central government will be responsible for CGST. It means when tax is purely levied by the central government, it is CGST. And to govern CGST, to control CGST, to rule CGST, CGST Act 2017 has been passed. In the same way, SGST means State Goods and Services Tax. SGST is to be administered by state government, like CGST is to be administered by central government. In the same way, SGST is to be administered by state government. It means when tax is purely levied by state government, it is SGST, and to govern SGST, SGST Act 2017 has been passed. In the same way, UTGST, that is Union Territory Goods and Services Tax, it is to be administered by administrator appointed by the central government for the union territory. It means all the administrators appointed by the central government for the union territory, they will be responsible for UTGST. It means when tax is applicable on the union territory and it is levied by the administrator of the central government, UTGST is applicable, and to govern UTGST, UTGST Act 2017 has been passed. Then IGST, that is Integrated Goods and Services Tax. IGST is to be levied and collected from the central government. It is levied and collected from the central government. It means central government will be responsible for IGST in case of interstate transfer of goods and services. It means in case of interstate transfer of goods and services, IGST will be applicable. And in case of IGST, it is to be levied by the Government of India, but it shall be apportioned between the union and the state, and to govern this tax, IGST Act 2017 has been passed. However, we need to remember these 2 points in case of IGST. It is to be administered and levied by the central government. It means central government will be responsible for IGST, and along with that, seller or service provider in the origin state, it means the state from where goods or services are transferred, the seller or the service provider of that state will be responsible to charge IGST in case of interstate transfer of goods and services. Thus, we can conclude it that like IGST is the combination of CGST and SGST. Why? Because it is to be levied by the Government of India, but it shall be apportioned between the union and the state. It means in case of IGST, the tax will be levied by the central government of India, but it will apportion between the union and the state. The next important feature of GST is that Goods and Services Tax Compensation to State Act 2017. As the name indicates that compensation to state act, it means this act was introduced only to compensate the states in case of application of GST, in case of loss of revenue due to application of GST. Actually, this act provides mechanism to compensate the states on account of loss of revenue which may arise due to implementation of GST for the period of 5 years. It means from the date of implementation of GST for the period of 5 years, if companies are if states are facing any loss of revenue, in that case this will be the responsibility of central government to compensate those states who are facing loss of revenue due to implementation of GST. But we will not discuss it here in detail because this is one of the feature only that you need to remember. The next important feature is that exempted goods and services. Actually, GST has a long list of exempted goods and services. N number of goods and services are there that are beyond the scope of GST, on which GST will not be applicable. That we will discuss in the separate video. Next one is the GST has replaced many existing taxes, central and states. Obviously, GST has replaced many existing laws, many existing taxes taxes, like for example, CGST has replaced existing central excise, sales, service tax, additional excise duty and some proportion of custom duty, whereas SGST has replaced like existing VAT, CST, octroi, entry tax, etc. So GST has replaced many existing laws and taxes. The next important feature of GST is one common tax return. It means there is one common tax return for both the taxes. For CGST and SGST, there will be one common tax return only. With one copy of this tax will be given to the central authority and one copy will be given to the relevant state authority. It means one copy of tax return will be given to the central authority and one copy of tax return will be given to the state authority. And one more point that we need to remember here, GST returns are required to file online. So all these are important features of GST. Thank you so much. If you like my video, kindly subscribe it and click the like button also.